The following is a presentation of Project Independence and WCWP. Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead.
Welcome to Project Independence and You.
Good morning and welcome to Project Independence and You Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm your host today, Rebecca Miller, along with fabulous co-host Otto Lohse. How are you, Otto?
Good, thank you. Nice to be here as always.
As always, it's good to have you on.
Nice day today.
Beautiful, beautiful day. And also Kristina who is, of course, the radio show producer of Project Independence and You. And also she is the Director of Senior Citizen Affairs for Project Independence. Today we have a wonderful guest, and we have to be extra thankful to her because she is, I guess, tuning in from California. So it's a lot earlier for her there today than it is for us. So I'm going to welcome our guest, Monica Corcoran Harel. And Monica is going to be talking to us today about aging gracefully and combating loneliness. So we're really looking forward to hearing your story. And also we have to disclose you are Kimberly Corcoran Galante's cousin.
What? Oh, is that right?
Yeah, you definitely are. And Kim is, of course, the commissioner.
It's a good thing you warned us.
The Department of Community Services and Department of Services for the Aging. So welcome so much. How's it going out west today?
Oh, it's another beautiful day in LA.
Oh, that's
Thank
nice.
you for having me. Yes, it's consistently gorgeous here weather-wise.
Yeah, that's true. We're actually having like a beautiful San Diego type of weather day today. You know, it's like it was cool waking up, and it's just the sun's beaming. There's not a cloud in the sky, and it's really nice. It's really nice here today. But so we want to hear all about you. I mean, I love the story. We read up a lot about you, but I want to hear what kind of led you to being kind of, I want to say like an advocate almost for, just kind of aging gracefully. I mean, we all have a path to where we are today. So
Right.
We'd love to hear about yours.
Thank you. Well, I've been a journalist for over 20 years, and I wrote for women's magazines throughout most of my career. And then when I was in my mid to late 40s, I started pitching story ideas to magazines like Elle and Marie Claire about perimenopause and midlife shifts, women looking for purpose, maybe leaving their careers to try something new. And I found that my editors, as wonderful as they were, said, look, our advertisers, assume our readers tap out at like 40. So we don't write stories for women over 40. And I thought to myself, well, where are women going to find content? This is such a pivotal time for women, midlife. So I launched a newsletter called Pretty Ripe, and I sent it out to about 50 friends, 50 people I knew from my sofa in Los Angeles during the pandemic. And it has since grown to thousands of subscribers, in part because no one is writing about issues that women in their 40s, 50s, even 60s, 70s, 80s are facing. So I don't put an age limit. It's for women over 40. Women under 40 are welcome to read it too. You're going to get there at some point.
Right.
So that's really the story of how I guess I became an advocate for women over a certain age who weren't being addressed in the media or by advertisers.
Wow, that's great, because there is a disparity in information out there for that age group, middle-aged women, and it's really unfortunate because as we are a Department of Services for the Aging, and people that are aging are going to shortly be the majority of the population, and yet, they're not really marketed to with, and they're the ones that really still have money to spend and buy things, and they like to. So, it's wonderful that you branched out to that. I'm glad that it's growing too. I'd love to be, would you want to give is there an email address that people can request to receive Pretty Ripe?
If you go to prettyripe.com, you'll see there's a tab to subscribe. It's right there. So there's a website and then you can subscribe. And I send out the newsletter every week. And I cover beauty, I cover wellness, I cover culture, some fashion, and it's all bite-sized information. It's like a 5-minute, maybe 7-minute read tops.
Right. Okay.
You're covering a lot of territory when you say over 40, because there's a big difference between a 40-year-old and a 70-year-old and an 80-year-old. I can speak from personal experience, not as a woman, obviously, but, you go through, I think as a woman, just observation, you go through all kinds of different stages, I think, physically, mentally, whatever. And you got a very broad market that you can handle.
You're absolutely right. Although I will say there's some commonality, and this could even be for the under 40 market. Women want to reduce their stress. They want to sleep better. That maybe they want better skincare. So I think the concerns shift, but there are some underlying themes. They want to know, what can I wear that's not geared for a 25-year-old. So, and my mom is 80 and she reads Pretty Ripe. So she's a good barometer of what I'm covering. And sometimes it applies to her and sometimes it doesn't, but she's as interested in what's happening in fashion and beauty as my 50-year-old friends.
And it's also good, I think, for planning. I mean, if you're 40 or under 40, or, we talk a lot about that with our seniors because it's not just within the females, but it's anybody who's, there's a big difference between anyone who's 40, like you were saying, Otto, and someone in their 80s, their needs. But you're giving information to the younger generation, what things to expect. So maybe if you start doing some of these things now, learning or planning, or even just understanding and accepting that there are changes. But the good news is there are things that we can do. There is successful aging tips.
That's so true. And actually, I was on a podcast yesterday talking to someone about how the beauty industry markets anti-aging products now to 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds. And 10 years ago, women like 18 to 24, maybe 20% of them were using anti-aging products, which is shocking to me if you're 18 and you're worried about anti-aging. And now 10 years later, 50% of that market or that age group are worried about aging and using products. And I think, the beauty industry is perpetuating this fear of aging. And when you're afraid to age at 18,
negative, right.
It's starting really young. And with Pretty Ripe, I'm really happy at 54. I love my age. I look forward to getting older. There are issues, of course, but I feel like what I've earned in terms of confidence and sense of self outweigh, some of the physical issues that I'm dealing with. That's the way I look at it.
Somewhere in the material we received for you, there's a comment about acting your age. And I think that's kind of important. Although you don't have to act old, you can have a balance.
Right.
But I think physically, if you see women who dress like they're still 18 or, try to look like they're 18, that looks worse than really looking like you should look at a certain age, in my opinion. So acting your age, I think, is not a bad thing to follow. And I don't mean mentally necessarily. I think acting too old is no good either.
Right.
Then you're old as opposed to older.
Right.
And
yeah. I feel like there used to be these rules, particularly for women. You couldn't wear a mini skirt after 40. You shouldn't have long hair after 40. And thankfully, fashion magazines have stopped promoting these age-related fashion rules and style rules because that's entirely up to you. But when you're really trying to turn back the clock, no matter the appearances, I think it just telegraphs I'm not comfortable with where I'm at. I want to be somewhere else in life. And when people say to me, my age doesn't define me, I say, not entirely, but my age does define me. I have 54 years of experience. I've been on this earth for 54 years, so I've learned a lot. So in a way, I would say my age does define me in the ways I want it to define me, right? Philosophically, maybe emotionally. But I think to your point, trying to look differently just negates what you have and where you're at.
I think like on one side, it's interesting how, fashion trends are, women, you can have any length hair, that kind of a thing. Yet, I was taken back for a moment when you were talking about anti-aging cream. So it's such a negative, modifier, if you will, to put in front of anything. It's saying that aging is bad, anti-aging. So maybe they just need to, you can change that word. And a lot of that kind of precipitates how we in our culture feel about aging. Aging's bad. Do whatever you can not to age, So maybe because on one hand, the fashion industry it is a big market because the baby boomers are, getting older, too. And even Gen Xers are in their 50s and moving ahead. So I'd love to see like those negative words. We recently had a guest on the show, Ron Roll, and he talks about successful aging, like taking, like he's 70, but like here's what I'm doing in this next great phase of life.
Right.
So, but if you put those negative words before aging, it's like, oh, it's almost like, oh yeah, I'm aging. I mean, we're all aging, but anti-aging. So maybe like the, cosmetic companies can change that a little bit in positive aging or,
But I don't think they will
aging
because
well.
it's a marketing money proposition.
It is.
A lot of people, when they see anti-aging, they figure, oh, I better get in on this.
Right.
And the facts of life are, I can speak from personal experience. You talked about learning. Do I know more now than I did when I was 40? Yes, I do. Quite a bit more.
Oh yeah.
Frankly, I know a lot more now than I did when I was 54. I think it's an evolving deal if you adapt to the world as it is and adapt to your situation in life, what point you're at, that makes a big difference. Don't fight it. It is what it is. And a lot of people would love to have gotten older, but they didn't make it.
Yes.
So count your blessings and just go do the best you can with where you are.
I agree.
Which means you don't have to go over the top about it either.
Right.
You kind of have to stay where you are, be comfortable with your situation, as you pointed out.
Right. And in addition to aging gracefully, there's the idea of aging gratefully, just being thankful that you have your health. And I find the older I get, my health becomes more important to me. I'm a mom to an 11-year-old. I want to be healthy. I want to be strong. I want to be around. And so I think as you get older, being thankful or grateful, in addition to trying to be graceful, they're both important.
Yeah.
Well, health.
Kind of philosophical there. So
number one.
We tend to do that on this show.
Ramble.
I think we're all on the same page.
The other one I like is M&M's for seniors. I just started thinking about that one lately. Your mind and mobility. Those are two things, along with health, of course. But if you have those things and you work at that, that's a good step forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. My mom just moved here to Los Angeles, Kim's aunt, Veronica, and she just turned 81. And I see that her mobility and her mind are so important. And she's acclimating to living in a new city, which is interesting. And she's from Brooklyn originally. She is a dyed-in-the-wool New Yorker. So everything in California and LA is go with the flow and no problem. It's all good. And my mom is like, no, actually, there is a problem. It's not all good right now. I asked for salt and you didn't bring it. She's not like, it's not that she's demanding. I think she just comes from a different culture.
Right. Yeah. Tell us
I read
about your mom.
And I said to myself, maybe you should have had her on the show with you.
I know. Next time, I'll bring her. Yes.
Definitely. And we'll have Kim on too. That should be a hoot.
Yes.
The three of you on. So tell us about your mom a little bit more before we get into her move to LA.
So my mom's name is Veronica. As I mentioned, she's originally from Red Hook, Brooklyn. And my mom moved out here about a year ago, but she'd been living in Florida for probably about 20 years. And my mom is incredibly vibrant. She's vivacious. She's opinionated, loves to go out. She loves to make things with her hands. She makes jewelry. She paints. She loves to talk to people. She's curious. She loves a stiff drink, maybe two. She likes to dance.
Like her.
I mean, my mom has the qualities I look for in a friend. She's loyal. She's complimentary. She's kind. She's really feisty. So I can't say enough good things about my mom.
That's beautiful.
Now, you also lived in Queens, I read.
I did. I was born in Manhattan and then grew up until about, I think, third grade in Queens, in Flushing.
Oh, okay. So you remember some of that at all?
I do. I remember the block that we lived on and, some of the houses and walking up to the drugstore and going to Kew Gardens as a kid.
So, but that's a different planet than Los Angeles.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very, very different. So I'm so interested to hear about more about your mom and the article you wrote and her whole, kind of what happened. I would say what happened to her, but everything I'm reading about her, she, her personal life, her friends, so important to her. Fun is so important to her, and we're just gonna actually have to take a quick break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we're going to hear all about Veronica and kind of what happened when things kind of slowed down and how she's combating that. So we'll be back with Project Independence in You on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. And we're speaking with Monica Corcoran Harel, and we're talking about aging gracefully and combating loneliness. We'll be right back.
So I get this call from my grandma, and she's like,
"What's a podcast and how much does it cost?"
So I tell her, podcasts are like radio shows, but you can download them on any device and listen to them anywhere at any time, and they're free. And then she says,
"I see, but where can you find good ones?"
And I'm like, go to wcwp.org/podcast and check out the lineup of original shows, or download any podcast app on your phone or tablet and search for LIU Studios. And she's all like,
"Oh, that sounds easy."
And then she asked me what an app is.
LIU Studios podcasts, available on any podcast app. Those little button things on your phone screen. Just ask your grandkids.
And welcome back to Project Independence in You on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm Rebecca Miller, along with Otto, Lohse, and of course, Kristina Liu, our radio show producer, and so much more with Project Independence in You. Also Dan Cox, who is producing the whole show. He has us directing the whole show each week. So a great team we have here for sure. And we are speaking with Monica Corcoran Harel. Am I saying your last name right? I hope so. And Monica is talking to us today about aging gracefully and combating loneliness, and is also a writer and is currently the founder of Pretty Ripe, and you're an author. So there's a lot going on, but of course, we're Project Independence in You. We're, based in the senior world and everything good and positive aging. And I just love the story of your mom, and it's usually, you move to Florida, you retire, and maybe you're a snowbird, but here's your mom, she retires and I guess moves to Florida and then retires again and moves to LA.
Right.
So, I mean, it's kind of, it just shows that she's, very different and very, probably still incredibly active. Yet there is loneliness when we get into our 80s. There's reasons, we lose friends, we relocate, we want to be closer to our families, and, lifestyles change. So it sounds like your mother had a big lifestyle change and really just didn't know what to do, because it looks like she's been the life of the party for 80 years.
Right. That's the best description. She has been the life of the party. And then at the age of 79, she moves to Los Angeles, and she's just on the cusp of turning 80. And we're in the midst of a pandemic. This was the height of the pandemic. And people aren't really socializing. In LA, unlike New York, is, people are in their homes or they're in their cars. There's a lot less foot traffic and chances to commune, by happenstance. But having moved here at 80 or 79, pandemic, there just weren't opportunities for her to meet people. And she was spending time with myself, my husband, my 11-year-old daughter. And when she first arrived here, she went to an independent living facility in Pasadena, which is just outside of LA. And my mom's a little bit of a hippie, and it was very structured. And it just wasn't for her. She wasn't ready for that type of lifestyle. So she ended up buying a condominium not far from me, which was fantastic. I can walk there in 5 minutes. However, now in this condominium, she no longer had the community that comes with these living facilities, which is amazing. So I was starting to see her spark dim. She didn't have plans. Sometimes I would talk to her and she'd say, well, tomorrow's Thursday. And I'd say, well, actually, tomorrow is Tuesday. But I completely understood, because she didn't have anything on her calendar. So it wasn't as if she was looking forward to something or keeping an eye on what day it was. And also, she was having some heart issues, and we were seeing doctors. But beyond that, I just saw her, I don't know how else to put it, except to say getting dimmer in like her light. And I really couldn't introduce her to people. I thought, I should have people over in my backyard. But then I thought, what if all of these people get COVID? It didn't feel responsible. So we have nextdoor.com. I think it's national. You probably have it as well. So you can post, and you usually are posting to your neighbors. So I created a post without telling my mom. And in essence, it was a picture of her, and it said, my mom has no friends, but it's not her fault. And I went on to describe her just as I just described her. Vivacious, loves Steely Dan, loves a stiff martini, very opinionated, from Brooklyn. If you'd like to meet her, reach out. And I didn't know what to expect. Within 24 hours, there were 80 or 100 comments. Then it was 250 comments. And what was really surprising to me was that it wasn't just her peers. It wasn't just people in their 70s and 80s. There were 25-year-olds saying, I'll take your mom to a Dodger game. Veronica sounds so fun. I love Steely Dan too. I mentioned that my mom loves coconut cake. Someone said, I'm going to make your mom a coconut cake. I want to meet your mom. So seeing this response, and I will tell you again, I hadn't told my mom. I guess it was a little bit of a social experiment on my part. She happens to be on Nextdoor and came across it and calls me and said, well, I guess I have no friends. And she said, did you have to lead with the fact that I'm 80? And I said, yes. And we then scheduled a night. There's a local museum, LACMA, the LA County Museum, has jazz night outside, and people come and listen to live jazz. It's a great place to bring people together during COVID. You bring your own food, you buy a drink, or you bring a bottle of wine. So we had a My Mom Has No Friends night. And I would say about 8 to 10 women showed up. And keep in mind, I did say, I advertised this post for women to meet my mom, for her to meet female friends, so it wouldn't be misconstrued as like a dating post. And so of those 8 to 10 women, she's now made friends with about 5 or 6 of them. And my mom is a completely different person. She's more vibrant. Believe it or not, she was in AFib, which was when your heartbeat is irregular. And I'm not going to say that making friends completely changed that. She had a procedure, but she'd had 2 of them that didn't take. And this one did. And in writing this article, I researched how loneliness affects older people. And it does increase the risk of heart disease. It does increase the risk of stroke. You don't realize what having community does for you emotionally and physically. You know, like having friends is important, but do you realize how much it profoundly affects your health? But really quickly, getting back to my mom, she really is a different person. And now she's got plans almost every day. In fact, I will ask her, do you want to have lunch? And she'll say, well, I'm busy Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And it's fantastic. And I see her too.
That was a very gutsy move on your part.
Yeah.
You know, because to be blunt about it, you don't know who you're going to get hooked up with on those kinds of things. And I would say, as they know, I'm technically pretty up to speed. But I think a lot of seniors wouldn't use Nextdoor. I'm on Nextdoor because I learn a lot about stuff that's going on in the neighborhood. But I'm not soliciting on Nextdoor. But you know, how would you think, like, I think that was a great move you made and it worked out great. How do you go about, like, if that's not a good option for you, like you don't have a daughter like you and, you know, now you're on your own and you got to figure out a way to, I like your words, make play dates, you know, it's more difficult, I think. You know, if you're not technically going to do it on the internet, you know, it used to be, okay, we'll go to a singles bar,
right?
You know, or we'll go maybe to a church thing or whatever. You know, I'm just curious as to have what you think about other approaches to that kind of thing.
My suggestion would be to do outreach and don't necessarily look for your peers. Again, what I learned with my mom and this post was that people of all ages were interested in meeting her. And so if you were living alone and you weren't someone who gets on Nextdoor, you know, you probably see a neighbor and saying, wow, I'd love to have a cup of coffee or take a walk one day. Or do you know anyone around my age who might like to have lunch? I'm looking to meet people. Because once I put it out there, what was fascinating to me was I got so many responses from people around the country, because there was this article that ran in New York Magazine saying, you know, my mom is lonely, or I've seen my mom, her husband passed, her friends have passed on, and she watches TV during the day, but I know that she would love to talk to people. So I think it's really doing that outreach, being your own advocate to make friends, no matter what age you are, and not worrying whether or not someone is exactly your age.
I you know, I agree with you. You know, the problem, of course, is that not everybody is comfortable reaching out, if you will. And unfortunately, if you wait for people to reach out to you, it may not happen. So every now and then you got to make that move, you know.
Yes.
Whether it be like go in our area, go to a Project Independence meeting, go to some Blankets for Love or whatever, you know, something where you're going to meet other people. You don't have to be the person who's walking around talking to everybody in the room.
Right.
But you have to try to go somewhere, because it's not going to happen if you just stay in your house and wait for the phone to ring. You know, if you don't do your computer stuff, then you have to wait for the phone to ring, and that's going to take a long time.
And I mean, let's face it, you know, COVID did not help the situation at all. You know, it turned a lot of, you know, especially the older population who were active, kind of also made them homebound for reasons that were not really within their control at all. So, you know, it made that whole effort even more difficult, because I still know there's a lot of older people that haven't returned to their full outdoor, outside life. So it does make it difficult. But, you know, I like what you're saying, Monica. You know, just go to the places that bring you joy. I mean, you have to put yourself out there. You know, it's like older people. I'm also a single mother of 2 older kids. So, my life is very different now that they're kind of older, and I don't have those day-to-day responsibilities. So now I have time, and what is it that I want to do? So it's awkward too, you
Right.
have to kind of find friends, which I did in similar situations, and I'm lucky enough that I've been able to do some traveling, which really, invigorates me. Even when I come home, I'm good for a while. And
Right.
when you find those things that bring you joy, and only you can, you can do that yourself. You have to know, go to the places that are fun to you.
Right.
I mean, if it's bowling, and maybe you can't even bowl, watch some people bowl. Look and see where there are leagues. Look, get in touch with the libraries. I mean, Otto, for us, it's so easy. Project Independence has so many options, and there's one call to get to us and our services and programs. And like Otto was talking about, we have everything from blankets of love to support groups, bereavement groups, and educational chats, and so many things. So look for things too. All services, like depending on where you are. We have a lot of townships and county stuff, and there's services for the aging. So in every area, there should be places that have services for the older community, and resources. You want to
Right.
look for like a resource guide, numbers to call. So you have to be your own little advocate, and that could be kind of fun in a way. Set up a plan. Make every day you're going to try some way to bring joy into your life. And we can only do what we have around us. It's
Right.
not the same. So if you've got 5 things in LA that she likes, it's not the same as Florida, where, the community is, the community. So it's just get to know those resources,
Right.
and make them work for you. I know easier said than done, but
Well, if you happen to be a daughter like Monica, or a granddaughter, or a son, or a grandson, and you happen to hear stuff like this, maybe you could help whoever it is, your mother, your grandparent, whatever, reach out. Give them a little encouragement to do that. That wouldn't hurt.
I agree. And to both of your points, there are resources, even in LA, and looking for my mom, and my mom doing her own research. She happens to like classical music, finding concerts. We have a great resource here called Gen Space, which was created by the Annenbergs, which are really affluent family that give a lot to our city. And what they've done is they've created a space where there's yoga, there are computer workshops, you can learn to knit, you can learn about gardening, but it's also staffed by a lot of students from University of Southern California. So they're really bridging the generations. And I took my mom there for a tour, and the guys who were working there got such a kick out of her. And she ended up chatting with them about her experiences. They were sharing their experiences, and it was really a joy to see. And there was genuine interest on both sides. So my mom recognizes this, but I don't think everyone recognizes that people who aren't your age are still interested in what you have to say. It's valid, you're valuable, you're visible.
right.
So when people say you disappear after a certain age, that's a narrative. Choose not to believe that. Choose to believe
Right.
that what you have to say is important. You can make people laugh. I've seen it with my mom. And again, in writing that article and seeing all of these people who were significantly younger than her reach out and say, I want to meet your mom, or I want to live my life like your mom. She sounds really fun. So
See,
remember
you just
that.
said something, by the way, live your life. I think that your approach to aging starts at a young age. How you live your life as you're going through the 40s, the 50s, the whatever, by the time you get to the 60s, 70s, 80s, I don't know if you're going to change a lot. I think you have to start thinking about that, believe it or not, at an earlier age, and don't act old. I know people who act old when they're 40.
Right.
They figured like they were already shot. They're over it. I'm 40. You might as well get it over with. And it's an attitude that does exist with younger people. And I think younger people have to think about that a little bit and make sure their attitude is the right way for when they get older. If you didn't do a lot when you were in your 40s, you're not going to do a lot in your 80s. I don't think. I mean, I know people that don't do a lot, and it's, they didn't do a lot when they were in their 40s. So that's not going to change, in my opinion.
It sounds
so I
like
think you have to work at that early.
It sounds like Veronica still identifies as being a hippie. I love that. I mean, I couldn't wait to talk to you because, I still consider myself a hippie. And I just love that
You are.
part of her. And what?
I said you are.
We know. Yeah. So, I actually became a yoga instructor too later in life. And, it's just, you're never too old, to do new things and experience new stuff. And if it's something, you don't have to, not do something because you never did it before, and if you're older, people think, oh, why am I going to do that? Like, why am I going to turn on a computer? I don't need that. But yet, look what happened during the pandemic. I mean, it was life-saving for most people being able to go on a computer, get on Zoom. Technology was, so important. So, so it sounds like Otto, Veronica really, holds on, I don't want to say holds on. It's who she is. It's what she identifies with, So.
And what I noticed also, and I mentioned this in the article, is that, my mom's identity around her friends is the identity she chooses to promote. Like, she's reinvented herself with these new people that she's met. When she's around us, we're family. We've known each other so long. I love my mom, but there's, of course, that like emotional baggage on everyone's part. What you did, what you didn't do. If you can step back and look at your parents as people, as extraordinary people, and not as the person who raised you, you're grateful for that, but really see them in a different light. And I managed to do that with my mom. And what helped was seeing her around these new women and seeing her talk about topics I didn't even know that she was passionate about, or hearing her tell a joke that she maybe wouldn't tell to us. And I just realized, wow, my mom is really extraordinary. And she has an identity outside of being my mom.
A great time to take a break with calling Veronica extraordinary. So she sounds extraordinary, and so are you. So we are going to be right back. We're talking with Monica Corcoran Harel. She is the founder of Pretty Ripe, and she's also an author. And we're talking to her today about aging gracefully and combating loneliness, and a lot of talk about her mom. We'll be right back.
Take WCWP with you wherever you go with the WCWP app. Listen live 24/7 to all of our streams, all from one app. Plus, call the studios directly from the app and visit our social media. Download the app through the iOS App Store on Apple devices or the Google Play Store on Android by searching WCWP Radio, or visit WCWP.org for links. The WCWP app, available now on iOS and Android devices.
And welcome back to Project Independence in You on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm Rebecca Miller, along with Otto, Lohse, and Kristina Lu. And we're speaking with Monica Corcoran Harel. And the time is going really fast. We're learning a lot about aging gracefully and talking about ways of combating loneliness. And, Monica, we have so many guests on the show, all in talking about all different issues, from aging, from insurance to, I don't know, elder care and legal care and just everything. And we never have a guest that we don't learn something from, and like better, helpful hints. And it's so interesting, and that we have Veronica as our model now, yes. As, aging and traveling and doing the things that she wants to do. And it's nice to hear that at 81 now, she's got a whole community of new friends and enjoying life. And it's after the whole pandemic, major part of the pandemic, has ended, that that there is this, great existence. You can do things. And like, Attica, not everyone has a Monica, but, if they hear you and what you did, there are ways to kind of, you could be your own advocacy, or ask from help in the family. Hey, if you're not technology savvy, can you help me with this? But, there is a lot to enjoy, and.
I think some of it really, and there's no historic or scientific study based on what I'm going to say, but your mother growing up in Brooklyn, I grew up one block out of Brooklyn in Woodhaven in Queens, and there was never a dull moment. We always had, I go out in the street and there were, back in those days, all kinds of people I could play ball with or do whatever. You grow up in a social environment that's very different than growing up in the suburbs, to be honest about it. In the suburbs, everything is planned. There's no just going out in the baseball field. I'm not trying to be like the old guy that, it was good like that. And I think it attributes and contributes to things like how your mother is. And frankly, myself, you reached out, that's how it was. There were always people out there, and in your age bracket for the most part, always. So what's the point? The point is that some of it is how you started in life, and you may have to adapt. You've got to adjust a little bit. If you didn't grow up in that environment, then you got to start thinking like that environment.
Right. What I noticed, I did make some play dates for my mom, and I make play dates for my 11-year-old daughter. But once I wanted to be a filter because, Otto, you mentioned earlier, all of these people were commenting. I wanted to make sure that I sort of vetted people and we met in public places. I wanted my mom to be safe. And she's taken over. I mean, I haven't had to be involved in any way. They make their own plans. She's texting. And one thing I will bring up, I see these parallels between my mom and her age group of women and teenagers, because, when you're a teenager, you're sort of fixated on your immortality, right? You can break the rules. You're going to live forever, do whatever you want. And for my mom's age group, they're very cognizant of their mortality. My mom will say, I've got 5-10 more years. I might be dead. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to break rules. I'm going to do whatever I want. And I think she's really taking advantage of the time that she has. She doesn't have to be somewhere in the morning. She's very fortunate that she's not working and she's retired. She's financially independent. I'm going to be spontaneous because, I don't work now, and I can go out at 3:00 and meet someone for coffee or go to a museum and think about that instead of thinking, oh, I have all this time on my hands. Think, well, wow, what a bonus. I'm free to do whatever I want. I mean, my daughter she's only 11, almost 12, doesn't have that many responsibilities. She can hang out with her friends. She can go on a sleepover. I really envy her. And I envy my mom because she and her friends can go out to dinner and sleep in the next day, and that's a bonus. That's time that you can fill without those parameters of, I feel like I'm so busy as a working mom trying to meet up with a friend and like, oh, I'm not free Thursday, but maybe next Wednesday. And then you get to the point, you're like, why are we so overscheduled? And I think for my mom, she just takes advantage of the fact that she has a calendar that's open and she can fill it at her will. So
it doesn't take a lot to fill it either. Trust me.
Monica,
if you get involved with a few things, it doesn't take long.
Kristina sends me these things throughout the show. It's not me just coming up with everything. She's really the best producer in the world. I just have to show up and exactly what to do and say. But she just sent me something very interesting, and I'd love to hear about it. You're a screenwriter? Or you're doing something?
That's what I wanted to ask you about, too.
I am. And I will tell you, it ties into what we're talking about. A couple of years ago, I sold an idea to Netflix with a writing partner for a movie. And the idea was a body swap movie. And it was about two middle-aged women, late 40s, who go to a wellness retreat. And they go to a crystal workshop where you hold crystals and you manifest what you want in life. And they end up switching crystals. They see crystals on the table that are shinier and brighter and prettier. So they grab those. And that night they go to their rooms and everyone's supposed to, manifest with their crystals. And what they've done is they've switched crystals with two 25-year-olds. So when they wake up in the morning, these, middle-aged women are now Gen Zers and vice versa. The Gen Zers are now middle-aged women. And actually the actress Eva Longoria just signed on to play one of the characters in direct. So that's really exciting. So what we're really talking about in this movie is multi-generational commonality and women in their 20s dismissing women in their 40s initially, and then realizing, hey, wait a minute, like we have a lot to learn from each other. And I think that's why my partner and I sold that to Netflix, because they understood that we're looking for this. We're looking to bring people together and it's already there. We have this commonality. The whole idea of, okay, boomer, I think, that's a bit of a media construct. I don't see that reflected all the time. I see people eager to engage.
That whole process of screenwriting, you're the only screenwriter I know. So the point is, when you do something like that, like I always envy, you see a show and you say, geez, that was really great. That, whoever created that idea, the writing, is that typically one person, or is there a team of people who make these things up, or what's the process?
It really varies. I wrote this movie with my partner on that particular project, but I also write alone. And in fact, this is a good time to bring up that the article that I wrote for New York Magazine, My Mom Has No Friends, garnered a lot of interest here in Hollywood as a TV show. So right now I'm in the midst of negotiating with a production company to develop it for television. So it's going to be a TV show.
Let us know.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I'll write that, on my own, but then with a TV show, you have a whole room of writers that come together and help flesh out ideas and stories. But I'm so excited for this to be a TV show because I can tell stories of women my mom's age, women in midlife like myself, and then there'll be a teenage daughter as well. So again, it'll be multi-generational. I feel like that's my platform now.
Now you would still be involved with that? You'd be involved with the writing?
Yes,
right.
Yes. So I would be writing the first episode and then writing more episodes and then producing it.
It's so important because there is really no shows marketed for the older population. There's so few any products or entertainment that are really geared, in our culture, we kind of have, early bird specials, like to get the older population home so everybody else can have fun. But the fact is that, the population is 60 and over is the majority of the population now, and people are living a lot longer. So it's great that you're doing this and that, it's, hopefully will open the door for other programming and things. And I also love that you talk about how important the intergenerational stuff is, to break down the stigma that aging has with it, that once you get old, there's so many negative things, stigmas that have to do with aging. I don't have to list them all. There's very few positive, but, these shows can really bring a lot of that positive and bringing in the younger people to talk to older people, and understand what kinds of things, what I like too, is what they enjoy instead of kind of being, very wisdomy. Well, when I was, it's like, oh no, I love doing this and, sharing fun, those kinds of fun things. So
no, but you mentioned, Monica, in one of the articles about movies for grown-ups. All right. AARP has a big deal about movies for grown-ups. They present awards and so on. And let's be real about one thing. All right. There are some things where age does make a difference. All right. You're interested in watching in the older categories, these super special effects movies are not as high as they are for a 15-year-old, let's say, right? You're more into content and story and whatever, which most of the movies for grown-ups fall into. And, I think the point there is that, yes, there are some things that there will be a gap, all right? That not a lot of 80-year-olds like heavy metal music, as an example, right? So fine. So we live with that. We understand that there's not everything is going to be like, one big happy family between a 15-year-old and an 85-year-old. It doesn't work like that. But you have to accept where you are in that process.
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw, there was an article in the New York Times last week about grandmates, which is more and more Gen Zers and 20-somethings moving in with their grandparents. And
I knew one of the women, Lucille Cantor. Yeah, her grandson moved. Yeah, that was a great article.
Yeah. I love seeing that.
I skipped that one. What article? Maybe Rebecca, if you saw the article.
I actually have it. Excuse me.
Could you send me? Yeah.
I'll send it to you. Yeah, I'll bring it in.
I want to say that Hollywood is really waking up to the value of the over 50 consumer. They know that these people go to the movies. There's actually a studio called Landline that markets and creates content for people over 50 movies. And for the longest time, we've always assumed that Hollywood's obsessed with youth. And it is on some levels. And a lot of those Marvel movies, their biggest demographic or consumers are the younger crowd. But Hollywood is beginning to understand that Gen Xers and baby boomers are affluent. They have time. They want to consume content. They want to see themselves reflected on screen. If you're 55 years old, you want to see a romantic comedy where a 55-year-old woman meets a man, or a 65 or a 75-year-old woman. Grace and Frankie was a great example. It was on Netflix, I think, for 7 years. And if that's not a testament to the staying power and the interest in that group, that was Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, then I don't know what is. A lot of TV shows last 2 years tops. So,
right. So there's a market.
There is a market.
There's a market, and they want to identify with these shows, and not just wait for the grandparent to show up, knocking on the door, who's going to babysit, like real substantial stuff. Great.
True.
Wow. Could we be in your show?
Yes. See, look at me. I'm just like, sure, you are in already. Get your SAG cards.
Kristina's too young.
That's the Screen Actors Guild. It'll be interesting to see. Some people have asked me, well, who would you cast as your mom? And this character wouldn't be my mom. I mean, she'll be a composite of different people. But I really want to be true to her spunkiness and also her background. I don't want her to be super fancy. My mom's from Brooklyn, and she's really retained her grit that came with growing up. And so it'll be interesting to see who plays her in the end.
Can't she play herself?
Do you ever watch on Hallmark Chesapeake Shores?
No.
Well, it's it's like the one big happy family living on a lake house up in Massachusetts somewhere. But one of the daughters wrote a book, and the book was pretty much related to the family. And she got into hot water with the whole family because of the book she wrote. And what you're saying is you're protecting yourself already by saying it's not your mother, it's a composite.
Right. My mom would love to play herself.
Yeah.
Veronica would be thrilled. Trust me. Well, I'll get her in for an audition. We'll see how that goes.
Hey, you never know. People start, Colonel Sanders started at an older age. So maybe your mother could become a diva at 80.
Oh, she could. Trust me. I believe in her. My mom could be whomever she wants to be at this point. I've seen this. I've seen her, again, as I said, reinvent herself. And I can't stress more how wonderful it is to see her having a renaissance, in her 8th decade of life. That is, and it's really inspiring to me. I mean, she's a great role model for me, knowing that I have that option ahead of me to evolve.
Right. No boundaries. I just have one question. Did she go to Woodstock?
She did not. She did not go to Woodstock,
I was just
but she
curious.
should have. If there was a Woodstock now, she would go with you, Rebecca.
Okay.
Yes.
No, actually,
Listen, maybe we need
yeah,
to.
And you too, Otto, and Kristina, everyone.
Yeah.
she might have been a hair old to go to Woodstock.
No, I don't think so.
Well, I'm 86, so I was a little old for Woodstock, in my judgment, at least.
Woodstock was what, 67?
69, 68.
Yeah, around there.
Okay, I would have been 1 or 2. I wish she'd taken me to Woodstock, frankly.
You could have gone on, her backpack.
A little papoose, yes.
Yeah. Definitely.
I almost took my mom to see Grace Jones, who was playing at the Hollywood Bowl, but in the end I had to travel for business. But she loves Harry Styles. If I could afford a Harry Styles ticket.
Kristina loves Harry Styles. She's
okay. I'm going to put you in touch with Veronica.
Yeah. There's a great, intergenerational connect right there.
I love it. I feel like we could really take this on the road. Me and Veronica Harry Styles. That's the show. That's the show right there.
Just made her day.
Fortunately, tickets here were like $800. I mean, if you didn't get them right away, and that just was out of reach.
Well, we are. I can't believe it. The hour has gone by, Monica. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much, and it's just wonderful the story of Veronica and getting her to maintain herself and not lose herself and moving later in life, all these things that complicate in COVID, and yet she's made new friends. Her social life is fun. She's enjoying. She has you. What a great story. So I hope we get you back on the show. We have to take a quick break. You're listening to Project Independence in You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org.